Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Brian's Horror Corner. And welcome to this horror Blu ray movie review video as part of my current series where I'm taking a look at several different horror movies from my standard Blu ray collection. Um, so today we're going to go ahead and take a look at a movie by a pretty well known horror director. It's his first movie, actually, from 2003. And that, of course, is Rob Zombie's the lighting's House of a Thousand Corpses, which is on this two pack here, along with The Devil's Rejects, which I haven't seen yet. I'm trying to go in order with these. Um, yeah, other than the Rob Zombie Halloween movies, I've only heard. I haven't seen any other of Rob Zombie's movies until now for this review. So we're going to take a look at not a House of a Thousand Corpses from 2003, Rob Zombie's directorial debut. So let's just go ahead and get into it. So, House of a Thousand Corpses is a 2003 American black comedy horror film written, co-scored, and directed by Rob Zombie in his directorial debut, and the first film in the Firefly film series. The plot centers on a group of teenagers who are kidnapped and tortured by a psychotic family during Halloween after traveling across the country to write a book. Inspired by 1970s horror films such as The Texas Chainsaw Massacre and The Hills Have Eyes. So basically, the film opens on October 30th, 1977. Amateur criminals Killer Carl and Richard Wick attempt an armed robbery at a gas station slash horror museum, but are killed by the owner, Captain Spaulding, and his assistant, Ravelli. Later that night, Jerry Goldsmith, Bill Hudley, Mary Knowles, and Denise Willis are on the road in hopes of writing a book on offbeat roadside attractions when the four meet Spaulding, who is also the owner of the Museum of Monsters and Madmen. They learn of the local legend of Dr. Satan, and they take off in a search of the tree from which Dr. Satan was hanged. They pick up a young free spirited hitchhiker named Baby, who claims to live only a few miles away. Shortly after, a mysterious figure appears hidden in some overgrowth and shoots out their vehicle's tire with a shotgun. The group thinks it's just a blown out tire, and so Baby takes Bill to her family's house to get a tow truck. Moments later, Baby's half brother Rufus picks up the stranded passengers and takes them to the family home. There they meet Baby's family, her adopted brother Otis Driftwood, her deformed giant half brother Tiny, mother Firefly, and Grandpa Hugo. While being treated to dinner, Mother Firefly explains that her ex husband Earl had previously tried to burn Tiny alive, along with the Firefly house, after after he suffered a psychotic breakdown. After dinner, the family puts on a Halloween show for their guests, and Baby offends Mary by flirting with Bill. After Mary threatens Baby, Rufus tells them their car is repaired. As the couples leave, Otis and Tina, disguised as scarecrows, attack them in the driveway and take them captive. So yeah, that's the setup and the premise for House of a Thousand Corpses from 2003. As far as the cast goes, we have Sid Haig as Captain Spaulding, Bill Moseley as Otis, Sherry Moon Zombie as Baby, Karen Black as Mother Firefly, Chris Hardwick as Jerry Goldsmith, Aaron Daniels as Denise Willis, Jennifer Jostin as Mary Knowles, and Rainn Wilson as Bill Hudley. So yeah, that's to set up the premise and the cast for. Sorry about the lighting here, guys. That's the okay. That's to set up the premise and the cast for House of a Thousand Corpses from 2003, part of this horror two pack here. This is an interesting film. Like I said, I'd only seen Rob Zombie's Halloween movies before. I hadn't seen any of his Firefly series, or any of his other movies that he's directed. But I wanted to start at the beginning. I've heard things about him. I know Rob Zombie's kind of an acquired taste for people. Some people really love his movies. Other people really don't like his movies at all. So I'll give you my thoughts overall about Rob Zombie movies at the end. But as far as this movie goes, let's just go ahead and get into it with starting with my pros or the things that I liked about this movie. And this movie is very stylized with Rob Zombie's distinct signature on it. And I think the 70s aesthetic and the overall atmosphere in this movie works really well for what he's going for. and for what the movie's going for. It very much has that. If you've seen any of Rob Zombie's movies, they all kind of have that 70s sort of vibe and aesthetic going on, even if they're not all set in the 70s. Now, this movie is. But yeah, that's one thing about Rob Zombie. He's very, you can watch his movie and then put it against another movie that somebody else made, and you'll know which one Rob Zombie's is. Kind of like Quentin Tarantino. He's very much got his own signature, if you will. Very stylized movie that only Rob Zombie could make. So I give him kudos for that, because that's hard in the world of movie making to establish your own brand, your own style that people are able to pick out from thousands of other movies. And this movie definitely has that. I think this movie has fantastic set designs, from the gas station at the beginning to the fried chicken stand by Captain Spaulding, to the farmhouse, to the crypt of these thousand corpses at the end of the movie. They're all very detailed and appealing to the backdrop of what's going on in this movie, and they all just sort of they go one after another, and they just kind of get better as the movie goes on. But they're all very good. They were all very well thought out and planned and visualized, and so that's one thing that really stood out to me. And as somebody that likes a good setting in a movie, that was definitely a pro here. Also, the movie has really good visuals overall and color palettes throughout the movie that make for a really well looking, aesthetically pleasing watch. I mean, this is a movie that it uses a lot of different colors based on the settings of where they're at. Um, yeah, it's just very well shot, very some nice camera tricks here, some just really appealing to watch, and that's definitely one of Rob Zombie's strengths, I would say. Um, Obviously, this movie and Rob Zombie created some of the most iconic villains to date. Characters like Captain Spaulding, who's actually my favorite character in this entire movie. My only disappointment was that he wasn't in the movie enough. And this one, he's kind of sprinkled in at the beginning and the end. I would have liked to have seen him more. And then you have Otis, of course, played by Bill Moseley. Captain Spaulding, played by the late Sid Haig. Rest in peace. He gives a great performance for the limited time he's on screen. And then Baby, played, of course, by Sherry Moon Zombie, who I don't think was Rob Zombie's wife at the time. Maybe she was, but obviously she is now. Those three characters specifically, and then the rest of the family as well. Um, but I would say those three characters are iconic villain characters, horror villain characters. Just a whole family of wacky, deranged characters that have great looks, great character designs to all of them that are simple yet sadistic. And the best example of that, I would say, is Captain Spaulding, who's got some very simple clown makeup on, but yet it's I don't know. Part of it is Sid Haig's performance, and he makes it work. But while it's simple makeup, it's also kind of sadistic makeup, and it just works. It's creepy, it's sadistic, but yet very simple, nothing over the top or crazy. And same with like when Bill Moseley, his character of Otis, especially towards the end, puts on the makeup and kind of changes his look. So there's some great character looks and designs that really work well in this movie. Also, having it set on Halloween is a really fun and cool sort of thing that adds to the allure of the movie, gives off those Halloween horror vibes that I like so much. So that's something that I'll remember down the road. I didn't realize it before seeing this movie that it was set during the time of Halloween, so that's kind of cool. And then I have to say I did like the ending of this movie as well. With no real escape, or it has no escape and it has hopelessness that really fits the overall tone of the movie. I mean, this movie is very much it's very much kind of a hopeless movie, without a lot of escape possibilities, or you kind of know early on that these characters are screwed, basically the protagonists, and that they're not going to get out of this. And I thought the ending had a nice way of wrapping up the film in that regard. Um, so yeah, those are my pros that I also I'll say obviously the music is really good. There's some interesting music choices at different times in the movie, but obviously being directed by Rob Zombie, the music's going to be kick ass in the movie, and it is. So that was fun too. So those are my pros for House of a Thousand Corpses. Getting into some of the cons. Ultimately, this movie is very disjointed, and it has no real solid plot or flow of story. It's more like a bunch of cool sadistic visuals and scenes and ideas that are thrown together without having any real narrative through line. So what I mean by that is there's really not a story to this movie. I mean, it's very. I think I think they went into it thinking, boy, we could do this and we could do that. We could make this look cool and we could have this cool character design, and all of that stuff works. It all looks very cool with great sets and great designs. But as far as a cohesive story goes, there isn't one. It's just very disjointed and kind of a mess, to be honest with you. Um, so yeah, that was the biggest con. Also, obviously the protagonist characters were dull and uninteresting. So you don't really give a damn about any of them or the horror that awaits them in this movie. Now, I do know that Rob Zombie purposely did that. He came out and said that nobody cares about the protagonists or the quote unquote good guys, the innocents, if you will, in this movie. I kind of disagree with that. I mean, there are a lot of horror movies that don't give the time and attention to the protagonist characters that they should, and that's a huge problem in horror movies. But to me, the best horror movies are when they actually do give those characters the quote unquote good guys. You need that line, you need that balance to be able to root for somebody. Otherwise, you're just watching a torture porn, sadistic sort of movie without having. And that's kind of how I felt watching this movie. It never scared me. The horror aspects weren't really there for me because he didn't give these characters any sort of fleshed out backstory, or were to the point that we actually cared what was happening to him, or were being affected by that. And that's a huge problem. So, well, Rob Zombie admitted he purposely made that choice. I don't think it was the right choice. And I'm definitely a horror movie watcher that wants characters, both the good and the bad, to be fleshed out somewhat and to make us care about what's going on in the movie. And I just didn't with this one. It's like you just have four random people. It felt like, two girls, two boys that stumble upon this place, and horrific and sadistic things happen to them, and I'm just kind of watching like, yeah, that's visually stunning. I don't care what's happening to the characters, but so I think that was a mistake. That's maybe just a difference of opinion. That's just how I feel, though, when it comes to horror movies. I think you should give more to the protagonist. Obviously, the movie has less than superb writing and dialogue between the characters. That's really rough. Unfortunately, we've come to expect that from Rob Zombie. That's really his big misstep, or his weakness, if you will, as a filmmaker. I really think he should hire writers and then just direct the movies. But it can be hard and a slog to get through, just like the Halloween movies, just like I'm sure some of other some of the other movies that Rob Zombie directed are. He doesn't know how to write characters very well, and it's very typical of the white trash kind of characters that he has in all of his movies, and it's just not realistic dialogue at the end of the day. And then my final con, which it's not, I don't know how much of a con it is. It's more about the originality of this movie. People act like, oh, this is so unique and it came along. It's not unique. He obviously borrowed from, there's three movies from the 70s, just right off the top of my head, that this movie clearly borrows from. The most obvious being the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I mean, this movie's got Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 1974 written all over it. Also, The Hills Have Eyes and Tourist Trap from 1979, and The Hills Have Eyes from, I believe, 77. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 74. So, well, it's okay to borrow from movies. Let's get it right. I mean, he basically put his own spin on those three movies in Rob Zombie fashion, but there's a lack of originality and nothing that we haven't seen there before. It's really just Chainsaw Massacre on steroids. Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 1974. I mean, not all the other ones. Um, but yeah, it's Rob Zombie's spin on Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So not really an original idea. Like I said, just Texas Chainsaw Massacre on steroids. And quite frankly, there were several times in this movie where I felt like I kind of miss watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre. In other words, 1974's Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This movie made me want to watch that movie because that movie's better than this one, basically, because of the simplicity, because of the low quality budget that movie had. I mean, I could go into a whole diatribe that makes that movie a classic. Um, and he definitely took off on that, but like I said, it's just his own spin. Um, I wouldn't even say it's modernized that much because it still takes place in the 70s. So I don't know. That's just something that really I saw those three films while watching this, and um, I don't know, man. It's hard for me to rate because it is a well-made movie by a talented director. A lot of visuals, a lot of great settings, a lot of great atmosphere. But I didn't care about any of the characters or the stories. I didn't even think the villain characters, well, they were cool. I thought they were portrayed pretty well, especially by Bill Moseley and Sid Haig. None of them were really flushed out there either. It's just a sadistic family and a group of sort of innocent protagonists that we don't care anything about, with a story that, like I said, is all over the place and has no coherent through line. So I got to be honest. This just isn't my kind of horror movie. I mean, I'll watch it again at some point down the road. I will watch The Devil's Rejects at some point, but this isn't a go-to horror movie for me. But I can recognize that it is a well-made, technical, from a technical standpoint, horror movie. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. I think for what it is, it's done well from those technical aspects. The movie overall just doesn't really work for me. It's just not my brand of vodka, as I say in some of my reviews. Um, but I will keep this in my collection, obviously, because I need to watch The Devil's Rejects. I don't know, unless this movie's phenomenal. I don't know that I'll get these on individual Blu-rays or DVDs. I guess we'll see when the time comes. But yeah, 7 out of 10 for House of a Thousand Corpses from Rob Zombie from 2003. Go ahead and comment down below if you guys have seen this movie, what you think of it. Do you like it more than I do, less than I do? Why not? Comment down below. Please like this video and hit the little notification bell down below so you don't miss any of my upcoming reviews for this series. And please be sure to subscribe to my channel as well so you don't miss any of my great horror content. October, November, December, and right on through next year. I have a million ideas for you guys for great horror content. So thank you for watching this review. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're enjoying this Blu-ray horror series, and stay scared. Bye.